Just moments ago, that was essentially the message. Donald Trump delivered to Britain's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and the consequences of that message are already reverberating across the United Kingdom in ways few have yet begun to grasp. If you're surprised by how rapidly the so-called special relationship has disintegrated, stay with us, because what's unfolding now is far more than a diplomatic rift. It's a geopolitical and economic reckoning that could hit British households directly. In the months ahead, let's step back to understand how we reached this point. For years, Starmer's Labour Party didn't merely criticize Donald Trump. They conducted what can only be described as a sustained campaign of political character assassination, sociopath, dictator, racist, pathetic, little man, neo-Nazi sympathizer, threat to the international order. These weren't casual remarks from fringe activists or social media provocateurs. They were deliberate, high-profile attacks from senior figures, including members of the very cabinet now governing Britain. Foreign Secretary David Lammy went so far as to label Trump a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathizing sociopath. And yet these same officials now seek to rebuild ties with Washington, expecting to be treated as trusted allies. But here lies Starmer's critical miscalculation. Donald Trump never forgets an insult, ever. And today he once again holds the most powerful office on the planet, commanding the world's largest economy and its most formidable military. January 20th, 2025, Trump's second inauguration. World leaders from every continent descended on Washington, eager for FaceTime with the returning president. Italy's Giorgia Meloni was front and center, multiple photo opportunities, warm exchanges. Argentina's Javier Milei received VIP treatment and private meetings. Even some of the world's most controversial leaders secured invitations. Keir Starmer, however, did not. Britain's Prime Minister, head of America's historic ally, was completely excluded from the ceremony. This was no administrative oversight. It was a calculated act of diplomatic humiliation, a public signal to the world that the United Kingdom, under Starmer's leadership, no longer mattered in Washington. It was the geopolitical equivalent of crossing someone's name off the guest list and making sure everyone saw it happen. The message was unmistakable. Britain is irrelevant. Their leader disrespected me, so I will treat their nation the same way. But the inauguration snub was only the beginning. Trump's retaliation was about to escalate, from symbolic to strategic. Behind closed doors, Labor's past actions were coming under renewed scrutiny in Washington, because this story goes beyond insults, into territory that could prove politically explosive, even legally sensitive. During Trump's re-election campaign, senior Labor figures didn't merely oppose him from afar. They allegedly crossed a line, directly intervening in the U.S. election process. According to reports, Labor Party officials organized trips for activists to travel to key battleground states such as Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, where they campaigned door-to-door in support of Kamala Harris. They even posted on LinkedIn, recruiting British volunteers and offering to arrange accommodation for those willing to help defeat Trump. When this information surfaced, Trump's legal team moved swiftly, filing formal complaints with the Federal Election Commission. The allegation: unlawful foreign interference in a U.S. election. Labor was accused of making illegal foreign contributions through volunteer, labor, and organizational support. Whether those claims amount to a breach of U.S. law remains debatable, but politically the damage was immense. To Trump and his inner circle, Labor no longer appeared as ideological opponents, but as foreign adversaries who had actively tried to undermine him. In his eyes, this wasn't a disagreement. It was an act of hostility. And now Trump is striking back, not through words, but through policy. The next phase is economic. Trump has already signaled his intent to impose sweeping tariffs on nations he believes have disrespected America. And according to multiple reports, Britain now sits right at the top of that list. Let's examine what all of this actually means for ordinary British families. The United States remains Britain's largest single trading partner, accounting for over $280 billion in annual trade. British exports to the U.S. range, from luxury automobiles and aerospace, components to financial services and pharmaceuticals. If Donald Trump moves forward with the tariffs he's threatening, Those exports could be hit with taxes of 25% or more, a devastating blow that would render British goods uncompetitive in American markets almost overnight. The ripple effects would be severe. Manufacturing jobs across the Midlands and the North could vanish. The pound could tumble against the dollar, driving up the price of imports, from fuel to food, for families already feeling the pressure of a fragile economy. And what is Prime Minister Keir Starmer doing in response to this looming economic crisis? By all accounts, he's scrambling, urgently trying to arrange phone calls with President Trump, sending congratulatory messages through diplomatic channels, and appealing for a meeting that has yet to materialize. But inside Washington, the message is unmistakable. Britain is being ignored. Diplomatic sources report that American officials are refusing to engage with their British counterparts at international events. The UK, it appears, has been quietly blacklisted by the Trump administration. The depth of that frost became clear with Starmer's appointment of Peter Mandelson as Britain's new ambassador to Washington, a decision that has raised eyebrows on both sides of the Atlantic. To many in Trump's circle, Mandelson represents everything they despise about the globalist establishment. The polished face of Tony Blair's New Labour, a symbol of EU integration, and a man long associated with elite international networks. In Washington, Mandelson's appointment is being openly ridiculed. Reports suggest Republican insiders have described it as a joke, with some questioning whether he'll even be granted proper access to senior U.S. officials. It's a stunning reversal. The British ambassador to the United States has traditionally been one of the most influential diplomatic figures in the world. Now, Britain's top envoy is being treated as a diplomatic outsider before even setting foot in Washington. And as if diplomatic isolation and economic retaliation weren't enough, a new and unexpected front has opened, led by none other than Elon Musk. The world's richest man has launched what can only be described as a personal campaign against Starmer's government. Using his social media platform, X, and its 500 million users, Musk is systematically undermining the Prime Minister's credibility on the global stage. He's targeted Labour's most vulnerable points: the grooming gang scandals, restrictions on free speech, and what he describes as the party's authoritarian instincts. But Musk isn't stopping at criticism. He's taking political action. He has openly endorsed Nigel Farage's Reform UK party, effectively telling British voters to overthrow their own government. Reports suggest Trump told the crowd, "I think he was watching my speeches in the European Parliament for many years before he decided to run. I know that to be true." Whether or not that statement was entirely accurate is beside the point. The symbolism was unmistakable. Trump now views Farage as a legitimate statesman, a political ally, and Starmer as irrelevant. The optics are politically catastrophic. The President of the United States appears to prefer Britain's opposition leader over its Prime Minister. Farage is now positioning himself as the only British figure capable of restoring the special relationship, and Trump's public praise has effectively endorsed that narrative. Inside Westminster, Labour MPs are in panic mode. Private conversations, according to insiders, have turned brutal. Some senior figures are beginning to ask a question that would have been unthinkable only months ago. Is keeping Keir Starmer as leader worth the cost of Britain's relationship with America? The arithmetic is unforgiving. Trump has 4 years in office, 4 years to economically punish Britain, to freeze it out of major trade talks, and to strengthen ties with alternative allies while leaving the UK isolated. Leadership challenges are already being quietly discussed. Names like Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner are emerging as potential successors, figures who might, in theory, reset relations with Washington. The argument is stark. Starmer has become personally toxic to Britain's national interests. But even a change at the top might not solve the problem. Trump's grudges are legendary, and his memory is long. To him, any Labour leader might still carry the stain of the party that insulted him and interfered in his election. Complicating matters further is Labour's perceived closeness to China. While Trump builds a coalition to counter Beijing's influence, Starmer's government has maintained a cautious, some say overly friendly, stance toward China. Downing Street has avoided taking strong positions on Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Uyghur human rights, It has resisted joining U.S.-led efforts to restrict Chinese tech firms, maintaining trade ties that Trump views as strategically dangerous. In Washington's eyes, this makes Starmer's Britain not just irrelevant, but potentially unreliable. The logic follows. Why should the U.S. share sensitive intelligence or defense technology with a government that appears aligned, even loosely, with Beijing? And so the cycle deepens. The more Trump isolates Britain, the more Britain may look to China to fill the void, a move that would only widen the rift further. Now, even within Labour's own ranks, whispers are growing louder. Some are suggesting that removing Starmer might be the only way to salvage Britain's international standing. Every week he remains in office, Britain's global credibility erodes further. Each diplomatic snub, each excluded meeting, and each new trade threat chips away at the UK's status. Other nations are watching and adjusting accordingly. The potential cost is staggering. Should Trump impose major trade restrictions, Britain could face a recession deeper than 2008. Manufacturing hubs in the Midlands, aerospace industries in the Southwest, and financial services in London could all face mass layoffs. More and more Labour MPs are beginning to do the grim arithmetic. Is protecting one man's leadership worth jeopardizing the livelihoods of millions? Because this isn't just a clash of personalities, it's a seismic shift in global power, one that could permanently diminish Britain's role in the world. For over 8 decades, the United Kingdom has maintained influence far beyond its size, anchored by its special relationship with Washington. British prime ministers could once pick up the phone and reach